Stop whining, you never do anything anyway, my mom hissed as I trembled with high fever on the bathroom floor. She'd spent my medication money on my brother's new gaming console. This is my apartment. You leave, I whispered. That night, I packed her things and changed the security code. I'm 31F and I've been living in my grandmother's apartment for the past 4 years. She left it to me when she passed away after a long battle with cancer. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a cozy 2-bedroom place in a decent part of town with old, well-loved furniture and walls that held decades of memories. My grandmother practically raised me while my mother was elsewhere. The apartment always smelled like cinnamon and old books, and it was the only place I ever felt truly safe. When I inherited it, I promised myself I'd honor her memory by keeping it as a sanctuary. For a while, I lived peacefully alone, working as a freelance graphic designer, paying my bills on time, and slowly building a modest savings account. I had friends over occasionally, kept the place clean, and even maintained my grandmother's small balcony garden. Life was stable, if not extraordinary. Then the pandemic hit, and my design clients started dropping like flies. I managed to keep a few steady clients, but my income was slashed by more than half. I picked up some delivery gigs and virtual assistant work, but it was barely enough to cover essentials. Still, I was surviving. Around that time, my mother showed up at my door, sobbing about how her boyfriend had kicked her out and she had nowhere to go. My brother, 19, was with her, looking just as desperate. I hadn't spoken to either of them in almost 2 years, not since the disaster at my grandmother's funeral where my mother made a scene about the measly inheritance she received compared to me getting the apartment. Despite our complicated history, I couldn't turn them away. Family helps family, right? I told them they could stay temporarily while they got back on their feet. Maybe a month, 2 at most. That was 11 months ago. From the moment they arrived, my mother acted like she owned the place. She rearranged the furniture without asking. She threw away mementos of my grandmother that she deemed tacky old junk. She invited friends over at all hours, smoking inside despite my asthma and the building's no-smoking policy. My brother wasn't much better. He took over the living room with his gaming setup, leaving wires and energy drink cans everywhere. He'd play online games until 4 a.m., shouting into his headset while I tried to sleep before early morning client calls. When I'd ask him to keep it down, he'd give me the finger behind my mother's back. Neither of them contributed financially. Not $1 toward rent, utilities, groceries, or household supplies. My mother claimed she was between opportunities. And my brother said no one was hiring. Though I never once saw him apply for jobs. Meanwhile, I was working 12-hour days between my design work and side gigs, draining my savings to feed 3 adults. Every time I tried to establish boundaries, my mother would throw a fit. After everything I've done for you, she'd say. As if letting me be raised by my grandmother, while she partied through my childhood, was some noble sacrifice. Or she'd cry and say I was the only one she could count on. That I was cruel for not wanting to help my own mother. I felt trapped in my own home. The cinnamon smell was long gone, replaced by cigarette smoke and my mother's overpowering perfume. My grandmother's plants had died when my brother forgot to water them for 2 weeks while I was working an out-of-town gig. Then last week, I caught a terrible flu. Fever, chills, body aches, I could barely stand up without feeling dizzy. I had 3 urgent client deadlines and was trying to work from my bed, propped up on pillows with my laptop, fighting through the fever fog to finish designs. I'd asked my mother that morning if she could please pick up my prescription from the pharmacy when she went out. I transferred the money to her account, the last $75. I had until a client payment cleared the following week. I specifically told her how important the medication was, as my fever had hit 103 degrees Fahrenheit the night before. When evening came and my fever was spiking again, I dragged myself out of bed to find my mother and brother in the kitchen, unpacking bags from the electronics store. My brother was excitedly setting up a new gaming console, while my mother was scrolling through her phone. "Did you get my medicine?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe for support. My mother barely glanced up. Oh, I forgot about that. We had to hurry before the store closed. I stared in disbelief at the gaming console. You spent my medication money on that. He's been so depressed lately, she said, gesturing to my brother. He needed something to lift his spirits. Don't be so selfish. I need that medication, I said, my voice shaking from both anger and fever. I gave you the last of my money. Stop whining, she hissed, finally looking up at me with cold eyes. You never do anything anyway. Just sit in your room all day on that laptop. Meanwhile, we are stuck in this dump with nothing to do. Something inside me broke at that moment. Nearly a year of pent-up frustration. Grief for my lost sanctuary. And now the physical pain of illness, it all converged into perfect clarity. This is my apartment, I whispered, my voice low but steady. You leave. My mother laughed, a harsh bark of disbelief. Don't be ridiculous. Where would we go? Besides, your grandmother would have wanted us here. She always had a bigger heart than you. That was the final straw, using my grandmother against me. The woman who had dried my tears when my mother forgot my birthdays. Who had attended every school play and graduation, while my mother was nowhere to be found. You have until tomorrow morning, I said, turning to walk back to my room. Pack your things. My mother followed me, screeching about how ungrateful I was. How I'd always been difficult. How I'd regret throwing my family out on the street. My brother joined in, calling me names I won't repeat. I closed my bedroom door, locked it, and collapsed back into bed, shivering with fever but oddly calm inside. That night, while they slept, I dragged myself out of bed and packed everything they had brought with them. I placed the bags and boxes neatly by the front door. Then I changed the security code on the building's entry system and texted the building manager about the situation. He had known my grandmother for decades and had seen firsthand how my mother and brother had been behaving. He agreed to be present in the morning. At 7 a.m., I knocked on their doors. Your things are packed. It's time to go. The screaming match that followed was epic. My mother threatened to call the police. I told her to go ahead. My brother said he'd break everything in the apartment. The building manager's presence discouraged that. They both said I'd regret this for the rest of my life. That I was dead to them, that real family would never do this. I didn't argue. I didn't justify. I just stood there, burning with fever but finally standing my ground in my own home. They left, hurling insults over their shoulders. I closed the door behind them, reset the security code, and went back to bed. That was a week ago. The first night alone, I cried, not for them, but for the year I'd lost. For my grandmother's plants. For the peace that had been stolen from me. But each day since has been better than the last. I've been getting messages from relatives telling me I'm heartless. My mother has apparently been telling everyone that. I threw them out with no warning in the middle of winter. It's currently summer. My brother posted a rant on social media about how I chose materialistic possessions over family. I didn't bother responding to any of it. People who know me know the truth. People who don't, well, their opinion doesn't matter. Yesterday, I finished a big project for a new client who's promising steady work. I cleaned the apartment from top to bottom, sage smudging every corner. I bought new plants for the balcony. And last night, I made my grandmother's cinnamon cookies and sat in her old armchair, savoring the familiar smell that's slowly returning to my home. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my mother or brother again. Maybe someday, if they acknowledge what they did and genuinely apologize. But I'm not holding my breath. And I'm no longer holding my doors open to people who see me as nothing but a resource to exploit. My grandmother used to tell me, your home should be where your soul can rest. For the first time in nearly a year, my soul is resting again. Update: wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. Thank you for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. Yes, the apartment is legally mine. My grandmother had an airtight will and I have all the documentation. My mother contested it initially but lost. No, I haven't heard from either of them directly. But the flying monkeys are still bombarding me with messages about family obligations. Yes, I eventually did get medication and I'm feeling much better now. Both physically and mentally. And for those asking if I regret my decision, not for a single second. The peace I feel now is worth more than any false sense of family obligation.